Fake HOA cops terrorized my deaf son. My sister made them beg. Hey, y'all, welcome to HOA Karen Files. I'm Tara Hayes, a 38-year-old single mom from Augusta, Georgia, with a story that'll set your blood boiling. Picture a sunny afternoon, my 11-year-old son Owen, born deaf, turning our driveway into a canvas with his chalk murals, his world glowing despite the silence. Then, 3 fake HOA cops storm in, screaming in his face, terrifying him. They didn't know he couldn't hear, and they didn't care. But my sister Riley, a former Army Ranger, made them crawl and beg, unraveling a scam that shook our town. This isn't just about chalk. It's about family, justice, and a community that said enough. Grab some iced tea, settle in, and let's dive into how we crush these fake HOA goons. Ever dealt with a fake cop or HOA bully? Drop your story in the comments and subscribe to HOA Karen Files for more drama. August 2023, Augusta was draped in that thick Georgia heat, the kind that smells of honeysuckle and makes you dream of porch swings. My daddy left me a 6-acre slice of heaven, a weathered farmhouse, oak groves, and a creek that glittered like glass. No neighbors for a mile, just the hum of crickets and the rustle of deer in the brush. This was my sanctuary, where I raised Owen, my 11-year-old son, born profoundly deaf. Owen didn't need sound to shine. His chalk murals were his voice, sunsets bleeding orange, deer leaping across starry skies, cardinals with wings like fire. That afternoon, he was crouched on our driveway, sketching a cardinal, its red feathers bold against the gray concrete, his hands moving like a poet's. I sat on the porch, grading papers for my 5th grade class at Lincoln Elementary. Owen was small for his age, with my hazel eyes and a tangle of black curls, humming silently to himself, lost in his art. His father, Mark, had walked out when Owen was 2, calling him too much work. I didn't miss Mark. Owen's smile was my world, worth every late night and double shift. I sipped lukewarm sweet tea, papers fanned out, thinking life was good, simple, ours. The creek babbled, a hawk circled lazily above, and Owen's chalk scraped softly, a rhythm I'd grown to love. But peace never lasts. I felt it before I heard it, a low, guttural rumble, like a predator stalking. A gray SUV, no license plates, screeched to a stop at the edge of our driveway, kicking up dust that choked the air. 3 men climbed out, their boots thudding like war drums. They wore black tactical vests, cargo pants, and badges that gleamed too brightly, like props from a costume shop. The leader, Wes, was tall, hawk-faced, with a smirk that made my skin crawl. Carl, stocky, clutched a clipboard, his eyes darting like a cornered animal's. Mitch, wiry, chewed a toothpick, his fingers twitching near a fake holster. My stomach knotted. This wasn't right. Wes strode forward, his voice sharp as a blade. Ms. Hayes, Augusta Pines HOA Enforcement Division. Your property's in violation. I stood, papers sliding to the porch floor, confusion spiking. Violation? We're not in an HOA. This land's been ours for 50 years. He tossed me a glossy citation, the paper crisp, official-looking, but wrong. New ordinance, effective last month. Unauthorized markings on shared pavement. $600 fine, payable immediately. I glanced at Owen, still drawing, unaware, his cardinal's wings growing bolder. That's chalk, I said, voice rising, heat creeping up my neck. He's a kid, drawing on our driveway. Carl stepped closer, badge glinting under the sun. Pavement's under HOA jurisdiction, ma'am. Remove the child, or we initiate seizure proceedings. My heart pounded, a drum in my chest. Seizure? You're on my land. Get out now. Wes's smirk widened, eyes cold. Non-compliance noted. Fines triple to $1,800. Pay, or we escalate. I clenched my fists, stepping toward Owen, but Mitch moved faster. He marched to the driveway, looming over Owen, his shadow swallowing the cardinal. Hey, brat, he bellowed, voice like a gunshot. Stop that now. Owen didn't hear, didn't flinch, his chalk scraping on. Mitch's face twisted, and he shouted louder. You deaf or stupid? I ran, heart in my throat. He's deaf, I yelled, voice cracking. Leave him alone. But Mitch grabbed Owen's shoulder, yanking him to his feet. Owen froze, eyes wide with terror, chalk snapping in his hand, red dust scattering like blood. I lunged, shoving Mitch's arm, but he pushed back, his grip tightening on Owen. "Control your kid, lady," he snarled. Owen stumbled, hands flying to his ears, useless against the chaos. I screamed, "Let him go." My hands shook, nails digging into my palms, but I was 1 against 3. Wes and Carl closed in, Wes chuckling. "You're making this worse." I was ready to fight, to claw, to do anything, but a roar cut through the air, louder than my fear. Riley's red pickup truck tore around the bend, gravel flying, engine growling like a beast. My sister was here, and hell was coming with her. She'd always been Owen's shield, my rock, the one who never backed down. As her truck skidded to a stop, I saw Owen's eyes flicker with hope, and I knew these men had picked the wrong family to mess with. Riley Hayes wasn't just my big sister. She was a force carved from grit and steel. At 41, she'd survived 3 tours as an Army Ranger, her body a map of scars hidden under a flannel shirt, her eyes sharp enough to cut glass. She'd just returned from a tactical training course in the Blue Ridge Mountains, her pickup still caked in red clay, her mind wired for battle. She slammed the door, boots crunching gravel, and took in the scene. Owen trembling, Mitch's hand on his shoulder, Wes and Carl smirking, me lunging like a cornered animal. "What the hell's going on?" Riley barked, her voice a blade slicing through the humid air. Wes squared his shoulders, unfazed. "Augusta Pines HOA enforcement. This ain't your business." Riley's gaze flicked to their badges. Cheap, plastic, crooked, and the SUV with no plates. "Funny," she said, stepping closer. "I've lived here my whole life. Never heard of your HOA. Show me ID now." Carl fumbled, his clipboard shaking, a crack in their armor. Wes snapped, "We're authorized. Step back, or you're under arrest for obstruction." Riley didn't blink. She moved between Owen and Mitch, signing to Owen. "You're okay, champ. I'm here." Owen nodded, clutching his broken chalk, his small frame still shaking. I pulled him behind me, his hands gripping my shirt, his breath fast. Riley faced Mitch, her stance low, coiled like a spring. "Let go of my nephew," she said, voice low, deadly. Mitch laughed, a mistake. "Move, woman," he growled, shoving toward her, his hand still on Owen. Riley moved like lightning. Her hand shot out, seizing Mitch's wrist, twisting with surgical precision. A dry crack echoed, followed by a scream that pierced the afternoon. Mitch dropped to his knees, arm limp, face contorted in shock and pain. Carl charged, clipboard raised like a shield, but Riley sidestepped, tripping him with a swift kick. Another crack. His elbow buckled, and he hit the dirt, cursing. Wes lunged, fist swinging, but Riley was ready. She ducked, grabbed his arm, and pinned him face down, her knee on his back, twisting his wrist until he gasped. "Stop, please." All 3 were down, writhing, their fake badges glinting uselessly in the sun. I stood frozen, adrenaline flooding my veins, Owen's hands tight in mine. Riley signed to him again. "You're safe, Owen. I've got you." His eyes, still wide, softened, a flicker of trust. Neighbors were spilling out now. Miss Clara hobbling with her walker, Javier from the feed store, Denise, the nurse with a toddler on her hip. Phones were out, filming, voices rising. They grabbed the kid. Miss Clara shouted, pointing at the men. "What's this about?" Javier called, his phone steady. Wes, gasping, tried to salvage his authority. "She assaulted officers," he choked, but Javier, ex-National Guard, laughed coldly. "Officers? Those badges are junk. No plates on your SUV? You're scammers." The crowd buzzed, anger spreading like wildfire. Riley didn't speak, just stood over Owen, a human fortress, her eyes locked on the men. I dialed 911, voice trembling but firm. 3 men, claiming to be HOA cops, attacked my son. "They're down. Send help now." Police arrived in minutes, 2 squad cars, lights flashing but sirens off. Officer Torres, a grizzled veteran with a no-nonsense squint, stepped out, hand near his holster. "Who's running this circus?" he asked, eyeing the men on the ground. Riley standing like a sentinel, and me holding Owen. Wes pointed at Riley, spitting. "She attacked us. Arrest her." Riley's voice was ice. "They grabbed my deaf nephew, screamed in his face, claimed to be HOA. No ID, no warrants, nothing." Torres raised an eyebrow, walked to the SUV, and peered inside. No plates, no paperwork, he muttered, pulling out a stack of fake citation forms, printed on cheap paper, stamped with a logo that didn't exist. Torres radioed for backup, then turned to the men. Badges. IDs. Now. Silence, broken only by Mitch's groans. Thought so, Torres said, signaling his partner. Cuffs snapped on, the sound sharp in the still air. The crowd let out a quiet cheer, a release of tension. But as the men were hauled to the squad cars, I saw her, a woman, 60s, gray bun, scarf tied around her neck, slipping into the crowd. Brenda Holt, the shadow behind this mess, her Karen aura unmistakable. She was gone before I could point her out, a ghost in the daylight. The police hauled Wes, Carl, and Mitch away, their fake badges clattering to the ground, but Brenda's escape gnawed at me. Torres stayed behind, combing the SUV with gloved hands, pulling out a laptop, a bag of burner phones, and more fake forms. $400 for mailbox violations, $700 for non-compliant fencing. He shook his head, muttering, amateurs. By nightfall, a tech unit cracked the laptop's password, and what they found turned my stomach. Folders labeled targets and repeaters held photos of driveways, mailboxes, elderly residents clutching citations, notes like, widow, 82, pays cash, no questions, and single mom, autistic kid, easy mark. A video showed them cornering a blind woman outside her home, demanding $400 for gate violations, her voice trembling as she begged. This wasn't just about Owen. They'd been preying on Augusta for months, maybe years. Javier's footage, crystal clear, captured Mitch's grab, Riley's takedown, and Brenda's fleeting shadow by the SUV. He posted it to a local X group, and by dusk, it had 80,000 views, comments flooding in. These clowns need jail. Who's the woman in the scarf? Neighbors started talking. Miss Clara had been fined $250 for her porch swing. Mr. Lee got a $300 citation for his mailbox, both from Augusta Pines HOA, a name that didn't exist. The Real HOA board, a sleepy group of retirees who met once a year, issued a statement. No enforcement unit exists. These are imposters. I knew Brenda was the key, and she was out there, plotting. Riley didn't sleep. She sat at my kitchen table, whiskey untouched, the laptop's glow lighting her face. This isn't random, she said, scrolling through the scam's data. Brenda's running a network. We find her, we end it. I was scared. Owen woke screaming, his nightmares full of shadows, but Riley's resolve was a lifeline. They hurt my boy, I said, voice steady. I'm in. Owen, curled on the couch, signed, I want to help. Riley smiled, signing back. You're our spark, Owen. Keep drawing. His hands moved, sketching a deer, its antlers sharp, a quiet defiance. We rallied the neighborhood. Denise, a paralegal, dug into county records. No trace of Augusta Pines HOA, just a P.O. box tied to a shell company, Pines Compliance, LLC. Javier canvassed the street, collecting stories. Miss Clara played a voicemail from Brenda, her voice syrupy but sharp. Pay $250 by Friday, or we'll lien your home. Mr. Lee had a blurry photo of her SUV, gray, no plates, matching the one at my house. Riley called Vince, her army buddy turned cybersecurity pro. He traced the P.O. box to Savannah, linked to Brenda and a string of fake entities across 3 states. She's slick, Vince said over speakerphone, but sloppy. I'll get more. By day 2, Javier's video hit 300,000 views, shared across X and YouTube, captions screaming, "Fake HOA cops target deaf kid. Ant destroys them." Comments roared, "This ant's a legend. Find the ringleader." Local news picked it up, WRDW airing the footage. Reporter Lila Chun interviewed me on our porch, Owen sketching beside me, his deer taking shape. They thought we'd break, I told Lila, voice firm. They were wrong. Owen held up his drawing. Riley's silhouette faint in the antlers, a symbol of our fight. Ever had a scammer mess with your family? Share your story below and hit like to join HOA Karen Files. The viral fire lit a spark. Neighbors I'd never met knocked, sharing stories. Mr. Gaines, a Vietnam vet, admitted he'd paid $350 to avoid escalation, too ashamed to tell anyone. Mrs. Patel showed a fake fine for her garden, $200, signed by Brenda. We formed Augusta Sentinels, a group to fight HOA fraud. Javier wired cameras on his porch, Denise built a website, and I hosted meetings at the Grange Hall. Over 200 people showed up, bringing photos, voicemails, even a forged HOA charter Brenda's crew had mailed out. They scared my dad, a man said, voice cracking. We thought it was real. Riley stood at the front, teaching us to spot scams, fake badges, no plates, vague threats. Record everything, she said. They hate evidence. Vince called late, voice grim. Found Brenda's digital footprint. She's been at this for years, Alabama, Tennessee, now here. The laptop's a gold mine. Names, dates, $60,000 in cash transfers. He sent us a folder, photos of victims, scripts for intimidation, non-compliance escalates to liens, and a manual teaching recruits to target the vulnerable, elderly, disabled, single parents. Owen was just a mark, chosen because he was deaf, because they thought we'd fold. I looked at him, sleeping now, his chalk box by his side, and swore they'd pay. The fight was on, but Brenda was a ghost. Vince's data gave us a lead. She was in Charleston, South Carolina, posing as Coastal Pines Authority, fining retirees for petty violations. Riley and I packed a bag, kissed Owen goodbye. He was staying with Denise, drawing to keep his mind off the nightmares, and hit the road, a 4-hour drive through pine forests and marshlands. My hands gripped the wheel, nerves raw, but Riley was calm, her flannel shirt rolled up, eyes scanning the horizon like a hawk. She's not getting away, Riley said, loading Vince's dossier on her phone. Brenda Holt, 62, ex-insurance agent, a rap sheet of fraud and extortion, her Karen, charm a weapon. We reached Charleston at noon, the city buzzing with tourists and salt air. Vince had pinned Brenda to a gated community, Oak Crest, where she was shaking down a widow for $300 over unauthorized shutters. We parked outside, Riley filming through the windshield as I stepped out, dossier in hand. Brenda was there, gray bun tight, scarf fluttering, handing the widow a citation. Brenda Holt, I called, voice steady despite my racing heart. Her head snapped up, eyes wide, like a deer in headlights. You're done, I said, holding up the dossier, photos, forms, victim names. She bolted, heels clacking on the pavement, but Riley was already on the phone with Charleston PD, who Vince had tipped off. 2 squad cars cut her off, and Brenda was cuffed, her sneer replaced by panic. You'll regret this, she spat, but the widow, trembling, thanked us, her voice a whisper. The arrest was just the start. Back in Augusta, Torres used the laptop to track 9 more scammers across Georgia, South Carolina, and Tennessee. The network was sprawling, fake names like Community Patrol Unit and Residential Order League, all tied to Brenda's shell companies. They'd collected $60,000 in cash and Venmo transfers, preying on 200 victims, from retirees to single moms. The manual was chilling. Target the weak. Confuse, dominate, collect. Owen's case became the linchpin. His fear, Riley's defense, Javier's video. By March 2024, we were in court, a gray courthouse in Augusta packed with victims, neighbors, and reporters. I testified first, standing tall, voice clear. They targeted my son because he's deaf. They thought we'd fold, that we were easy prey. They were wrong. I told the jury about Owen's nightmares, the chalk dust on his hands, the way he froze when Mitch grabbed him. Riley took the stand next, her flannel swapped for a blazer, her eyes locked on Brenda. I protected my family, she said, voice like steel. I'd do it again. They came for a deaf kid, thinking no one would fight. They met me. The courtroom was silent, the weight of her words sinking in. Javier's video played on a screen, Mitch's shout, Riley's takedown, the crowd's cheers, every frame damning. Brenda's lawyer tried to spin it, claiming she was a consultant misled by Wes, Carl, and Mitch, but the evidence was a mountain. The laptop, Vince's data, victim testimonies. Miss Clara, frail but fierce, told how Brenda's voicemail made her fear losing her home. Mr. Gaines, voice shaking, admitted he'd paid to protect his pride. The jury took 3 hours. Guilty on all counts: racketeering, extortion, assault on a minor, conspiracy to commit fraud. Brenda got 8 years, her empire dust. Wes, Carl, and Mitch each got 5, their fake badges now evidence bags. The courtroom erupted, victims hugging, reporters scrambling. Owen, in the back, signed to Riley, "We won." She signed back, "Damn right." The trial was over, but the fight reshaped us. Augusta Sentinels grew, helping 300 families across Georgia fight HOA scams. The county passed the Hayes Act in April 2024, mandating HOA transparency. Every contract, every fine, now public record. Owen's murals became a symbol, his deer painting winning a city contest. Now a mural on the Grange Hall, its antlers bold under Augusta's sun. We renamed our street Riley Way, a tribute to the woman who'd stood like a wall between Owen and fear. Kids left chalk piles at our driveway, drawing with Owen, stars, birds, deer. Their art a quiet rebellion against the scammers who'd tried to break us. But shadows lingered. In May 2024, I found a note in my mailbox, typed and signed, "You took her down. We're watching." My blood ran cold, the paper trembling in my hands. Riley read it, jaw tight, her ranger instincts flaring. "Let him try," she said, folding it into her pocket. "We're ready." Owen, now 12, signed, "We're tough," his hands steady, his eyes brighter than I'd seen since the attack. He was growing, not just in height but in strength, his art a shield. I nodded, pulling him close. We'd faced worse, and we'd won. By April 2025, Augusta Sentinels was a statewide force, training communities to spot scams, from fake badges to forged forms. Owen's art inspired Chalk Heroes, a nonprofit funding art therapy for deaf kids. Riley spoke at a veterans conference in Atlanta, Owen by her side, signing, "My aunt's my hero." I watched, proud, my heart full. I'd rebuilt, fiercer, my classroom a place where kids like Owen learned they were enough. Our porch became a hub. Miss Clara swapping stories, Javier grilling burgers, Denise's toddlers scribbling with Owen. Brenda's scam was ashes, but that note was a whisper of battles to come. One evening, under the oaks, Owen sketched a cardinal, its wings blazing like the one Mitch had smeared. Riley and I sat, tea steaming, the creek singing softly. "We changed things," Riley said, her rare grin a gift. I nodded. "More than that. We built something." Owen ran over, signing, "Look." His cardinal sword, fierce, free. It was us, unstoppable, together, a family forged in fire. Strangers still stopped by, drawn to Riley Way. They'd snap photos of the mural, leave chalk, or just stand, quiet, like pilgrims at a shrine. A family from Tennessee drove 6 hours to draw with Owen, their daughter deaf, her hands flying as she sketched a hawk. Owen beamed, signing, "Art's our voice." I felt my throat tighten. This wasn't just our story anymore. It was theirs, too. A spark for anyone who'd ever been targeted, silenced, or scared. This fight carved 3 truths into my soul. Family is iron. Owen's courage, Riley's fire, they held us through the dark. Justice roars. When fake HOA cops came for my son, we fought, and the world heard us. Community is our armor, from Javier's camera to Denise's grit, Vince's hacks to 200 neighbors. We won because we stood together. No fake cop, no scam, no badge can break that bond. What's your fight? Faced a bully? Got a fake HOA cop story? Drop it in the comments. I read every one. Smash that like, share with your crew, and subscribe to HOA Karen Files for more battles against scammers. Click the bell to never miss a video. This is Tara, signing off from the driveway where chalk and courage rewrote our story.